we knew we were going to have the election of our lives. It was going to be the largest turnout ever. And there were going to be some people that were really happy with the result, and there were going to be some people that were unhappy with the result. And we knew, because the Republican legislature would not allow us to pre-canvass at all. And that just means opening envelopes and flattening the ballot so they could be counted on election day. Since they didn't allow that, we also knew that the delay would be a few days extra. And we would have a big red wave of in-person voting. And then you would see a blue wave of mail-in ballots, and they would collide, and one would prevail. And what we've seen is Joe Biden pull ahead of the president by a margin that eliminates any possibility that there is some pot of votes out there in Pennsylvania that would change the outcome for the president.
Well, I guess my next question is, we saw the president for months say, don't trust the mail-in voting system, vote in person. President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Harris say, you can trust it, stay safe with coronavirus, vote by mail. The in-person votes are counted first just because they can be counted quicker. The mail-ins take a little bit longer. Why do you think the president or anyone was surprised by how this was going to turn out? Obviously, maybe who won the state, but the way the votes were counted, why was anyone surprised?
Well, they weren't surprised. They knew it. In fact, they orchestrated that. I'm quite confident that they coordinated with the GOP legislature to make sure that they weren't afforded, why not give more time to open envelopes and flatten ballots unless you wanted this to occur? And there's something else I want your viewers to understand, is that the vote by mail bill in Pennsylvania, far more Republicans in our legislature voted for it than Democrats. And don't take my word for it, you can look it up. By a major majority, many more Republicans did. So this is a GOP bill. So just to be clear. So for them to vote for it and then not defend it when the president says, I don't like it, and then they try to act like, we didn't have anything to do with this bill, when they actually, more of them voted for it than Democrats did. And then they wouldn't allow pre-canvassing, and then they turned it into some kind of spectacle by making these lies and allegations that have no basis in reality. So this was actually, no one was surprised. This is exactly what they knew they were going to do.
Let's go to the coronavirus for just a minute here. I mean, I know Dr. Levine a few days ago had said there's no plan to go back to the phases of, red, yellow, green, but we know we've seen a lot of cases in Pennsylvania the last few days, especially the last 24 hours, 4,700. We were speaking to some restaurant owners today that are looking for some more help. What do you see for our restaurant owners and bar owners? We know there's a $1.3 billion in CARES Act money that can be spent. Do you see some of that, a little bit of that going to the restaurant and bar owners?
Absolutely. I know the governor cares very deeply for this whole industry. So this is, once again, it's the Republicans not getting off the dime, so to speak, and helping spend this money down. We have this money to help all of Pennsylvanians. And, a lot of it got sidetracked, I would imagine, because of this election. And now if we can't agree that we had a free election, what's ironic is that the same legislators that say, oh, you can trust my results, I won, that's a good result, but then they can say, well, they cheated on Joe Biden, but not on my race. It's absurd. This is the kind of lack of cooperation that the governor and I, constantly have to deal with in this. I mean, the virus should be the enemy. You may encounter people that argue that you shouldn't wear a mask, or I'm not afraid of this virus. You don't have to be afraid of it. All you have to do is respect the fact that, maybe you don't have an effect with it. Maybe your elderly father might, or, a World War II veteran, or someone with immunocompromised system. It's not about you necessarily. It's also about your fellow person. So, and that's what I'm hopeful for, that we as this country could just get together after Joe Biden assumes the presidency and make the virus the enemy, instead of arguing with each other about wearing a mask or social distancing or, all these other issues. And it just comes down to fundamentally agreeing to disagree on key points that we're never going to resolve. But if you like the result in 2016 and don't like the result in 2020, that is not evidence of fraud. That's evidence that you probably were rooting for the president, which is fine. I have people in my life that voted for the president, no problem. But when both sides weigh in and there is a clear victor, it's incumbent on everyone to just say, okay, let's move on.
Do you anticipate, and I know Dr. Levine has said we won't go back to red, yellow, green, but do you anticipate with this rise in cases in a lot of parts of the state that we will have to add on more restrictions to certain parts
I wouldn't get out in front of the governor and Secretary Levine on that. But what I do know is that the governor shares my emphatic belief and Dr. Levine's, that if we just do these very basic, simple things, wearing masks, practice the social distancing, observe limits in certain businesses and places, and avoid gatherings, that will go a long way. I mean, there is nothing more pro-business than wearing a mask and practicing social distancing and observing these kind of very basic kind of guidelines. It's a fact. It's biology. So, like, if you want things to stay open, keep a mask up and stay out of situations where you are spreading or being able to be infected with the virus. It's very simple. It doesn't make you any more tough, to take care of yourself. I mean, I don't understand it.
I know you don't want to get ahead of the governor, Dr. Levine, but I know some other states have started to add some stuff. New York, New Jersey. Have there at least been talks within?
I'm sure. I mean, this is something that occupies the governor and Dr. Levine on the regular. I mean, these surge in cases. But we're also a divided state where we have a legislature that's constantly trying to undermine the governor at every point, with him implementing just basic steps that were designed and have been very effective in curtailing the virus's spread. And now we have bigger and bigger gatherings and people letting their guards down and more interacting. And it's not surprising as the colder weather starts to settle in. I mean, this is what you have.
The concern with the restaurant and bar owners is that because it's going to get colder, they won't be able to do the outdoor dining. Yeah. And now they're
absolutely. And I'm hopeful that the vaccine that they're talking about is going to be effective. I'm hopeful that there will be appropriate CARES aid delivered for that industry that has been just decimated by the coronavirus. But I'm most hopeful for that we as a governing body can just say, look, the virus doesn't care if you're a Republican or Democrat, or you live in a red county or a blue county. Let's just take this on together as one Pennsylvania instead of red Pennsylvania and blue Pennsylvania.
We appreciate the time. If there's anything else that you want to add for our viewers at home that I might not have touched on, you have the floor if there's anything.
No, I appreciate the opportunity to share this, and I would just leave this idea that sometimes there's elections that I've lost or where my candidate didn't win. I didn't assume it was fraud, and I would just say anyone that is the sound of my voice just to consider that. Governor Wolf was governor in 2016 when the president won Pennsylvania by a relatively small margin. Now you have Joe Biden, who's winning Pennsylvania by a relatively small margin as well too. It's not unheard of that you have this kind of play. I mean, there's no evidence of fraud. There's virtually every Republican I know is feverishly searching for fraud in Pennsylvania. And 8 or 9 days later, the only example, to your point, is a local example of a man who's trying to vote for his deceased mother.
The president.
I just hope we as a state and a nation can move forward. And I don't say that as a Democrat. I say that as a father of 3 young children. I see that as a Pennsylvanian that sees all around him, lives overturned by the coronavirus that's already surging. It's like, we gotta get together. We gotta stick together. And I just hope we can all just agree that just because you didn't like the result, it's it doesn't mean that we can't all work together and just accept, what the results are. So thank you.